Hi everybody, Dave Thompson here, Community Outreach Coordinator for the Richmond Center for Disability, and coming up is a video on adapted cycling and alternate transportation. So hope to see you in a couple of seconds. Bye-bye. Hi, and welcome to the RCD ShareNet. My name is Dave Thompson, Community Outreach Coordinator, and this is the last of our series all month on invisible illness and chronic illness and invisible disability. And one thing that happens when you have changing of abilities and still want to get out there and exercise, a lot of times there's knee problems, there's all kinds of different things. Try to look at adaptive cycling or transportation. I had made that choice many years ago, and I truly believe it saved my life. And I'm going to show you some ways to enter into the realm, either very, very small minor change, maybe all you need, or maybe it's time with the time in your life or your age or whatever that you're ready for a full-scale sort of almost lifestyle change. And you go to something much bigger or much more expensive, and you maybe sell your car. Who knows? So go ahead with the first slide. This is a great way of alternative transportation. This is, I believe, a bike from Japan. And I've seen this man riding around Richmond with his grandchild in the little seat. So he's been able to, I've never seen one of these before ever, except for here in Richmond. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is talk about adaptations from minor change of thinking to a major shift. And the first thing is, why would you go to an alternative transportation? So some of the things that I experienced and other people experience is that maybe you have knee or back issues or recent surgery and you need a lower impact exercise, but you need to keep your cardio up. You want to increase your mobility. You want to travel and exercise with your partner or your pet, which is my pet is roaming around below us here. If you're experiencing balance issues, if you've had a stroke or anything like that and you have balance challenge, then you can't ride a two-wheel bike. If you've lost the energy to pursue normal cycling, if you want to lose weight, big one there. If you want to ditch the cost and the stress of cars, and especially in Richmond with parking and whatnot else, I am the go-to person in my house to pick up takeout now because I can go in and out and don't have to worry about finding parking. If you have a recent health issue, an accident or something like that that's just created a barrier to riding a standard bicycle. So those are some of the reasons why. So there's some pros and cons to switching to adaptive cycling. So the next slide, please. And some of the pros and cons are the chance to be able to ride again. So that's a pro. These are the pros. Long-lasting health benefits, building friendships and common interest, because a lot of times when people see you with one of these bikes, they stop you, want to take a picture, you get talking. Mobility and independence, low-impact exercise, like I mentioned. With the addition of electric and adaptations, you can make it a lifelong exercise, right? If your knees aren't an issue and your back isn't an issue, you can ride into your 90s, and there's people in Richmond that do. Environmentally contributions, right? You're helping with the environment. Less time in vehicles means less possibility of accidents, which can cause a lot of different problems and injuries. And with the illness that I have, it's actually one of the higher sort of reasons why people have it is after a car accident. You avoid and reduce the cost of ownership. You eliminate the stress and the traffic and parking. So those are some of the real pros to switching into an alternative transportation. There are some cons that you have to sort of accept. A lot of the alternative transportation can be a bit more expensive to buy. So right away you have to know that it's something, and that's where you have to sort of look at shifting your lifestyle. It's not, you don't buy a $4,000 bike and leave it in the garage and only ride it on the weekends when the weather's nice. So you have to sort of look at that, right? Yeah, access to the product and access to test rides. Sometimes you're going to have to buy the bike just from a picture, because you may not be able to see or ride something in the town that you're at. Something that I ran into, I had to drive down to Seattle to actually ride the bike that I purchased. Storage, if it's larger, my bike is 7 feet long, so it can't go anywhere. It may not fit in a standard car or bike rack, so you may have to learn how to fix your bike because you can't call someone to come pick it up and throw it in the back of their truck. But in the Pro, you learn a lot more about taking care of your bike. It may not fit on a transit rack on a bus or on SkyTrain. So if that's part of it, sometimes the novelty may attract theft because it's unique and people notice it. Bike stores may need to learn how to repair it. So you may have to really work with your bike store and kind of learn together on how to get this thing fixed if you have problems. And there are some city bylaws on alternative transportation, especially with COVID. I have been seeing those one-wheel stand-up ones with just the one wheel in between, and there's a guy on the river that goes so fast, and I know he's going faster than he really should. And there has been some issues with motorized skateboards where they banned them in certain cities. So make sure you check with where you're going to be riding it, and so you don't get a $600 ticket, because I remember that's what this one guy was given. So next slide, please. So this can be your first sort of switch. If you're the guy on the left is like the standard road bike, maybe all you need is a more upright position, fixes the back problems and whatnot else. You can see that the bike on the right too may have had a handlebar lift. So he may have an insert in his handlebar to even adjust that position. So he's got a nice upright riding position. And that might be just all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, now this makes more sense now. Next slide. So that's a good switch. The next one that's a big challenge for people sometimes is getting onto the bike, lifting your leg. So think of a step through. Up on the picture there, the step throughs have a real low frame where you just have to raise your foot a couple inches, you're up over, and you're on the bike. And of course, it's much easier to balance at lights and whatnot else because you can actually step down with both feet if you want and stay stable. So a step through is a great option. The next is, there is actually adult training wheels. So if you remember learning how to ride a bike when you were young, you can buy training wheels if you feel that it's a balance problem and you just need some practice, you need some confidence in your neighborhood. I've had many people approach me over the years that are just nervous of driving in traffic. And so if they put the training wheels on, they don't have to worry about the balance, they get comfortable, then they take the wheels off when they're more comfortable, right? Or I don't know exactly how durable those wheels are, but I don't know if you'd want to keep them on all the time. But if it's just leisurely, you may. Next slide. And then if balance is an issue, then this is when you go to something with an extra wheel. So you go to the standard trike, like a kid's trike, only on steroids, basically. And this one has some storage and some capacity to carry cargo. And usually these are very low powered in the sense that they usually only have one gear or maybe three. I've seen very few that have more than 3 gears. So if you live in a place like New Westminster or a place with a lot of hills, consider that, because they can be very heavy to get going. Once you're moving and you hit it downhill, beautiful. You don't have to do a thing because you have the inertia and the weight. But if you're on a little bit of a hill or anything at a light, you have to really get practice on doing it and getting going. So. But that's a great switch to a trike. So the next slide is similar. You can go if you're wanting to go with someone. The tandems have been used by a group here in UBC in Vancouver called, now I can't remember their name, but they have blind cyclists and they have sighted riders. So the sighted rider would be in the front or the back, and Blind Beginnings is the organization, and they have these rides where people will volunteer. So if you want to get some cardio and a workout, you can ride one of these bikes with a someone who has low vision or blind, and you go on rides, for ice cream and all kinds of things. And this version up there on the screen, there's an electric version as well. So you can get it with electric assist. So there's an option, and I've seen the tandems in Richmond, so I know that they exist and that you can get them just recently. The next slide. Now, if you prefer a recumbent, some people really like that position. It's better for pushing. Maybe it's a back issue, a hip issue, or something like that. I don't like this position, but there is a lot out there. This recumbent here is a tandem, so you can get single tandems, or you can get singles. This one is a recumbent tandem, but it's not as low as some that I've seen. Some recumbents are very low, and you got to sort of get used to that, because I've seen every real recumbent I've seen has a big flag on it, because I think they're very worried that people won't see them, especially large trucks. I'm just not comfortable being that low on that road. But that's an option. But this is definitely, you're much higher up than most recumbents that I've seen. Next slide. So here is a great cargo option, and this is some of the things that are coming out now. So this is when you can start maybe switching. It's a lifestyle switch. So we've got a young child on this bike. It also has space for a standard side grocery handled cart, or basket. And you can put that in there, ride, but then you can actually fold it up and it becomes a shopping cart. I've also seen a one like this where you lock up the back part of the bike. It has a pin in the middle. You take the front part into the grocery store, and then you come back out, join them back up together, and ride off. So this is another great option if you want to more mobility. You don't want to ask people for rides to do groceries. Today, I just came back from delivering all my recycling to the recycling depot and my bottles. And those would be stuff that I would usually get my wife to drive to if I didn't use something like this. Next slide. So this is my bike there on the bottom is a trike with two wheels in the front with a large basket. So these are known as cargos. The one on the top is called a back fleet, and it has a wheel in front. These are a great option if you want some cargo. I do suggest, and they do come in a trike version as well, so there's two wheels at the back. I've seen those. But if you have any sort of muscle upper body challenges, be careful, because that stand, the kickstand there on that one, it can be difficult when you've got cargo. I watched a woman with two kids trying to put it up on the kickstand, and it was quite difficult for her. So that's something you want to consider, because you have to pull all the weight of the bike backwards. And these come with all kinds of options. You can get covers. You can get one with like a chuck wagon cover with little ribs, and you can put some of these even have the front part will have a folding door where there's steps, so the kids can actually walk up the steps, and they call that the school bus. So there's some great options here. Next slide. This is now where if you're in a mobility aid already, I just saw one of these this weekend on the Garden City lands. So this is a wheelchair user, this is a detachable piece with one wheel. It slides into the posts where the foot pegs would be on the wheelchair. And this one it's a very old model because that battery is very large. The batteries are much smaller now. But everything just pops off, and it basically turns his wheelchair into like a scooter. And he has electric. I've also seen these in hand cycle version. So instead of the handlebars, there'd be a hand cycle. So he would be using his hands. And that's another great option. I have in the information in the my resources, there's a link to Hand Cycle BC, I believe, and they have all kinds of other options as well. If that's an issue, if you can only pedal basically with your hands, hand cycling's the way to go. Next slide. I don't know if we show one. This one is very unique. Everyone goes, what the heck is that? And this one's called a glide cycle. I don't know if this is something you would use on a regular basis, but they specifically use this for rehabbing from knee injuries or hip surgeries. So you can just put down enough weight. You're in kind of like a little spring jolly jumper, like when the kids, and then you just run, and then you can put your foot up on foot pegs that are on the front wheel and just glide. And they use this to rehab marathon runners and things for another option than getting in the swimming pool. But I don't know if this is something that would be, I don't know where would you put any cargo or anything like that. So this is more of a rehab tool. The next slide is something that was actually developed here in Richmond called the A-Linker. And the A-Linker is a woman who took her mother on a cruise with a standard walker. And you know those walkers with the little wheels? And if you have ever been on a cruise transferring from the boat to the ship to the little tenders, and there's all these lips and different heights of doors, and those wheels get stuck. And the big issue that she had more than anything was the emotional effect of her mother being so low and being talked to by down to everyone. And that's why she developed this. And this is the same as a walker, but you just walk, and when you're tired, you sit. You can lock the wheels, but you are upright. You're more empowered. You're at the same eye level as a lot more people. So you're not sort of singled out or forgotten about because you're down low. And that's was her real big influence in making this. And she's just gotten a big influence because an actress used one in the Emmys a couple of years ago, walked on with it, that had MS. And so now they actually do classes with these A-Linkers. They do exercise classes with them. So this is a great option. And there's one, I think you can get a basket attachment to it as well, so you can have a little cargo. Do we have, I can't remember if we have any more. We have a couple more. So if you don't want to seat at all, there's a couple options. So if maybe sitting's the problem, if you've had surgeries or anything in that area, maybe it's a challenge finding a right seat, and that can be. I know I've had that challenge for years. I have to get it just right or it will not be right. And there's a lot of options for seats now too. So definitely don't get discouraged if that's the issue, but maybe you go to something without a seat at all. So this is kind of like a stair climber, only it's got one back wheel and two front wheels, and you do that sort of elliptical sort of motion, and that powers that back wheel. And off you go. And I have seen one of these in Richmond many years ago. There was a physiotherapist who had one, and he would ride up and down the dike to his office on one of these. And this is a new one, and I couldn't get the whole thing, but the bar that cuts off at the top just goes up to handlebars. So this one has no seat at all. And this is pure cardio. You have to balance yourself on those pedals, so you have to pretty much constantly pedal. And you do a lot of leaning, and this looks like a lot of fun. But this wouldn't be something that you switched from no bike to this. This would be something in those stages. So there is a couple things to remember. I have some important things that you should look for. Also, there's options for folding. Trikes now come in folders. So folding is an option if you're in an apartment or if you want to travel and stuff like that. So check out folding options for trikes, and that way it's not as big. There's recumbents with one wheel in the front. There's recumbents with one wheel in the back, two wheels in the front. So that's also something you can look at. There's hand cycles. There's even a side-by-side cycle. So you share one handlebar basically, and you both have a set of pedals, and you sit side by side. It's a little wide, but I actually have just seen people in Richmond riding one, and I didn't know if they rode on the road, but I saw them on the road the other day. And I know some people there was one gentleman that started his weight loss journey with one. He was over almost 500 pounds. So he had to get this thing specially made, and he's lost quite a lot of weight doing it. So there's even water bikes now too. So there's even setups now where you can pedal on pontoons, and that's even another option. So a couple things to remember: ask your questions and do your research. If you see a bike, ask the owner, because sometimes these bikes are big. So I've had many people go, I never see these in stores. I go into the bike store, I can never find them. So, well, they take up the space that the guy could sell 4 bikes in that same space. So a lot of times they don't have them on the floor, depending on the size of the bike store. So you really have to ask, right? Check websites, blogs, YouTube for customer reviews. Get lots of those. And people are really open with, asking. I'm on a Facebook page for trikes, and people just go on there. How do I do this? I've had so many people going, I keep tipping and falling. How do I ride? And people are really good about. A lot of times trikes, especially because adapted bikes for young children with MS or cerebral palsy are extremely expensive. They're like 5,000 plus. So a lot of times parents can't do that. So they think, oh, I'll get an adult trike. It's nice and stable, but it's too heavy. So you will find these things in marketplaces and used, in buy and sell and things like that. Do your research when you take it to where you're going to take it for service as well, and talk to the shop, because a lot of times they're in different communities and they might know somebody. And there is also some nonprofit cycling groups out there that can help you with, especially if you're going to go to a trike and you won't be able to throw it in the back of the car. You're going to have to learn how to repair it on the go. And so they do repair kits, clinics. They have a place where you can work on your bike. They also will rent tools. So if you, tool loaning and group rides and much more. One other just last note, Richmond has one of the only rotisserie bike locks now. Have you seen the one at the swimming pool? It's, you get a card or something, you slide your bike in and it closes and goes on a rotisserie and stays in there, sort of. They also have a bike repair rack that you would see in a bike store. So you can go there and use the clamp your bike on there, fix your tires, your chain, whatever. And that's for public use. And that's at the New Minoru Adult Living Center, or whatever it is that they call it. So I know UBC runs some of these nonprofits. There's a couple different ones, but it's great if you're thinking, well, I can't fix the thing or I don't have the room. You can get these sort of things sort of taken care of. And then if you get into the group rides and whatnot else, then you start to learn more and learn more about your bike, and maybe you want to switch. But the big thing is look at your disability or whatever it is your barriers are, and then start gradually changing and looking, okay, this is all I really need. Oh, if I just change the seat, especially right now, I have seen so many people riding bikes that aren't built for them or aren't the right size, because it's such a shortage on bikes, and they think, oh, well, I'll just ride this little kid's bike. It's smaller, I won't fall. They're actually putting themselves in more danger than riding properly, or they don't adjust it properly and they're all hunched over in a bad position. And there is actually even a company that will do custom fitting of your bike. So they'll look at your posture and everything, and they'll take that into, and they'll tell you exactly what your seat height should be and whatnot else. So there's lots of great information. You can always contact me here at RCD, and we have a whole bunch of resources put there on the screen. So check those out, and I hope to see you riding, and get out there and enjoy the sun, because that's where I'm going now, back on my bike. Have a great day, everybody.